There. Hello everybody, Dan Weisberg here, and I'm the National Director for the TutorMate program. And I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes just giving you a high-level overview of the TutorMate program so that the potential volunteers from our partner companies might decide to elect to become online reading tutors this coming school year. So let's get started. First of all, I'm with Innovations for Learning. We are a nationally focused educational tech nonprofit, and really our focus is around early grade literacy. Our long-term goal is to try to fight poverty, but specifically we do that by trying to close the achievement gap or the literacy gap in urban communities across the U.S. By using a particular approach, which we'll talk about right now. That's the TutorMate program. TutorMate is a custom-built web application, and its purpose is to provide or to facilitate online tutoring. It relies on full-time volunteers. Many of you are on this call today, potential volunteers at least, who give just 30 minutes a week as reading tutors over the web. Our students are really first graders, occasionally second graders, but the bulk of them are first graders, and they are attending schools in our partner school districts across the U.S. The tutoring occurs during the day, and the tutors choose their own time. We'll talk a little bit about scheduling momentarily. The reason we focus on first grade, and again sometimes second grade, is because of this key metric, this key benchmark that educational researchers seem to know a lot about, which is that the third grade reading proficiency levels are major predictors, are key indicators of your ultimate likelihood to graduate high school, and of course your ultimate success in life beyond that. So President Obama, in fact, back in May of last year, discussed this particular issue when he spun off the My Brother's Keeper program from the White House to become a separate 501c3 organization called the My Brother's Keeper Alliance. At the time, he spoke at a major event to spin that nonprofit off, and he said that if children are reading by third grade at grade level, we know that they have a much better chance of doing better. And there's a great nonprofit as well in Baltimore, Maryland, but it has a national focus called the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, which has done a lot of research and tells us, as you can see at the bottom, that about 80% of low-income children do miss this critical milestone of being able to read proficiently by the third grade. And yet it's really the key indicator, the key predictor as to whether or not they're going to graduate high school, as I mentioned. So it is something we want to focus on, and our whole curriculum is geared towards putting kids, even really before the third grade, mostly on first grade. That's really where we can reach them the easiest. So you'll see here that the My Brother's Keeper program included our program in a what they call a corporate playbook that you can see at the lower right here, called the My Brother's Keeper Alliance Playbook for Corporations and Businesses. They were looking at a variety of mentoring programs, and they singled the TutorMate program out to give it a spotlight, talking about what the issue was around early grade reading, how our approach was actually, what approach we took here to deliver the TutorMate program, and what impact we've seen. We'll talk a little bit about all three of these things coming up. But if you want to check out this cool corporate playbook, once again, you can go to the hyperlink down here at the bottom, which I'm circling, tiny.cc/TutorMateMBK. Now, here's another indicator. Here's another research paper, a research study that was done and published in American Educator magazine a couple of summers ago, called The Importance of Early Learning. And again, this researcher, Chris Dougherty, over at the ACT Inc. in New Jersey, also confirmed the same data that we hear from other sources, that students who do not have a good start don't typically thrive later on in school. Not that it's impossible to pull them back on a solid academic track, but it just takes a lot more resources, much easier to get kids onto a good foundation to begin with in these very earliest grades. So when we first developed our program, the TutorMate program, we, my job here was to take it out to many corporations in our tutoring cities around the country to see if they would want to invite their companies to participate, their employees. And the typical response I got was something like you see here in this illustration, but luckily this reaction is now in the minority. We've been growing the program over the last 7-8 years here at Innovations for Learning. So this coming fall, this is the map where you can find the program actually operating in 23 cities around the U.S. right now this coming fall. So that's a big expansion. 5 years, that's 5 new districts this current school year alone. We were at 18 this past year. So this particular year we're adding San Jose, and we're adding Indianapolis, Grand Rapids, Boston, and Camden, New Jersey. Now you'll see here a list of many of our partner organizations. This is a partial list at the moment because we've been adding quite a few companies since this list was published back in March. We've added quite a few companies over the summer who will be signing on to start the program when we begin tutoring in the next month or 6 weeks or so from now. The TutorMate program, I want to give you a sense of how it works, what are the benefits, and how do you sign up. All of this is easy to discuss. You'll see here a picture of the CEO in Washington, D.C. Public Schools, Kaya Henderson, who's a big fan of this program as well. We work very closely with D.C. Public Schools. What do I need in order to tutor, first of all, is the typical question. The answer is 30 minutes per week during the school day, so that's usually between 8:30 and 3. This is not an after-school program. It's not a weekend program. We don't have an interest in setting it up in those modes. For now, we're really focused on getting it to work with as many school districts during the school day as we can. So you need 30 minutes during the school day. You need a telephone, either a land cell phone or a Skype connection. And finally, you need a computer with a browser that's connected to the internet. Just those 3 things. And the scheduling as to when you tutor each week is very, very flexible. The idea here is that you can choose your own time slot, your usual time slot from week to week. And if that time slot, if you end up with a conflict on your job for your usual time slot, that's not a problem because you can schedule what we call a makeup session as well. So tutors, you will work with the same student throughout the school year, but you might tutor them at a different time of the week depending upon how your schedule at work might allow you to choose time slots. So the way we do that is with the following calendar interface, which you see here. You can see the days of the week across the columns, Monday through Friday, and the times of the day, the actual times are the rows. And each row is a 15-minute time interval. So if you take 2 rows together, you get a 30-minute time slot. And that's the actual duration of our tutoring sessions. So all of our tutors are asked to commit to 30 minutes per week for a single time slot. But that time slot can vary. So you'll see here, Sheila Ingram, she's the tutor. She tutors right beneath her. You can see there's a student whose name is Zion, Z-Y-O-N. So Sheila tutors Zion usually on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. But if she had a conflict that came up, she can log in and she can schedule a makeup session for herself over here where I'm circling in the green on Wednesdays at 12:15 to 12:45. So that's a makeup session. The other rectangles, those are the teammates for Sheila. So Sheila might be working for CBRE, one of our great partners, or Microsoft, or General Motors, and all of these companies invite their employees to sign up, and we coalesce each set of employees into teams of about 10. And then the teacher's job is to select 10 students who get the tutoring, and then we pair up each of the 10 members of a given team with each one of the students that the teacher has selected. So that's the teacher's first job, is to select the students, and his or her second job would be to black out time slots when they do not wish tutoring calls to take place. So that's what you see here where I'm circling the 10 a.m. to noon time slot Monday through Friday. That might be when the kids are at lunch or recess or both. And maybe Thursdays, you can see this teacher doesn't really want too many calls happening on Thursdays, except for this 1-hour slot down here that I'm circling between 1:30 and 2:30. So all the other time slots are open, which means that the teacher is saying that the kids will be in the room, and if the classroom computer rings with a phone call, then the students can answer it and work with their tutor for a 30-minute tutoring session. Okay, but this flexibility is really what makes the program very attractive to to corporate professionals who tend to have an unpredictable schedule. That's not a reason not to sign up with the particular design of our program. Now, there's a lot of great videos about TutorMate. This is just a few of them. There's a lot more, actually, but for sure I would recommend that everybody at least jot this hyperlink down at the top here, tiny.cc/TutorMate. And if it doesn't run for some reason within your firewall, then bring it home. I'm sure it will run outside of your firewall. It's a great 4-minute video, and it really is the best way to help people sort of see how TutorMate works in action. So it's probably more interesting, I'm sure it's more interesting than yours truly, who's speaking right now. So if you haven't seen that video, I encourage you to take 4 minutes to see it. There's a few other videos on the list as well. If you click on the very bottom hyperlink here, TutorMate Resources, down there, what you'll get is you'll see a one-page PDF with a whole bunch of other videos. There's quite a few up here. There's quite a few news stories. We are often on TV news with the program, so you'll see some news stories. And then you'll see some press stories and some other brochures that might be of interest, some FAQs, for example. So that's a good, so this bottom hyperlink, tiny.cc/TutorMate Resources, is another one worth jotting down if you get a moment. Now, who benefits from a tutor? Obviously, our students benefit. I want to talk a little bit about how that happens, but we also feel that our employees and our organization, our partner organizations, benefit as well. How do students benefit, first of all? Well, the obvious way is by being able to improve their reading proficiency scores, to bring them closer to benchmark and target levels for first grade, if that's the grade they're in. And so that's really something that we do show statistically. We're able to have a big impact when tutors call week to week for 16 sessions or more. Then over the course of the school year, then we do see some specific improvement in oral fluency and word knowledge and comprehension skills. And this all helps position these kids for success in the later grades. But the secondary benefit is a little bit harder to measure, but probably just as, if not more important. And that's what we call motivation or grit or attitude about school and about academics. Because at this young age, they're 6- and 7-year-old students in the first, second grade. You have a big opportunity to really influence, by being there week after week, you can influence the attitude shaping that emerges with these young students. So that at a time when they haven't yet formed images of themselves as achievers or non-achievers for that matter, they're still eager to learn. But after a student has been accumulating, year after year, a series of poor grades, maybe by the time they're in 4th or 5th grade, it's a lot harder to bring them back onto a solid academic track. And so that's why we, again, focus on these early grades, and we asked you to help us instill the motivation in these students to really have a good attitude about academics and about reading. Here is some data that shows that we do have a significant impact about typically kids who get about 16 or more reading sessions for the school year see an average gain of about 15% in their reading scores. That's about equivalent to about 3 to 4 or 5 weeks of instruction. That was in a study that we ran just about 2 years ago with about 170 students who did receive these sessions compared to a demographically similar group who did not receive tutoring sessions. Now we know that employees benefit as well. There's a great book that I might recommend to you called Give and Take by Professor Adam Grant, whose picture is down here. He's at Wharton Business College in Philadelphia, and he argues quite convincingly with a lot of data that employees benefit by being able to give back, and their employers benefit as well, just because their loyalty and their sense of self and their sense of purpose really increases. So as Adam Grant writes, helping is really not the enemy of productivity. It really helps give employees more motivation, more productivity, and more creativity to bring back into the workplace. So that the 30 minutes of lost clock time once a week is more than adequately made up for by the improved productivity that employees tend to give. We find the program is attractive even to busy CEOs. Here's the CEO for Janus Capital, for example, in Denver, Colorado. Dick Weil, that's the student he tutored this past year over at the right, and it's a big company with well over 1,200 employees, and he still was able to tutor his student each week. So we do think that even busy people, such as this gentleman, can find the time to tutor that most of the people on today's call can do likewise. We hope so. Here's some examples of what the screens look like, so you get a flavor for how the interface looks. This is not a training session. You'll actually all go through a 1-hour webinar to train you in TutorMate. But just to give you a flavor, if you click the red button, you'll see that schedule that we looked at earlier in the session today. If you click the blue button, you'll then be brought into a screen that will give you the phone number for the classroom, and then after that, you'll launch into the first of 3 sections for our typical tutoring session. Every tutoring session goes through a similar structure. The first section are the flashcards. The next section are the stories, and the final section are the word games. So let's start off by showing you the flashcards. First, we will tell you what your student's reading stage is, because different students are at different stages of proficiency. So we may tell you that your student is stage 4, so you will click 4, click continue, and then you'll be brought to the flashcards for that reading stage. So if you click on any of these words here, like school, the rectangle will turn blue, and what the student will see is what you see here. That they'll see the word school suspended in air above a grassy green field. So you can see the tutor and the student are looking at slightly different screens. It's the job of our server to synchronize these two. They're not going to be the exact same content, because the tutor's content is a little bit more complex, but the student's job is to really recognize the word and mention it or articulate it to the tutor. And when the tutor gets it correct, when the student gets it correct, then the tutor marks it out, clicks the green checkbox, and it goes green. If the student can't figure out the word, then maybe the tutor would help them, but you still mark it with a red minus sign, so that next week when you come back to that student for next week's session, you will know that they need additional drilling on those particular words that were in red from the prior week. And then when most of these words are green, you can pretty well assume that they're ready for the next reading level. We show you some sight words. That's what the last words were. These are what we call onsets and rhymes. So these are words, for example, onsets. These are words that begin with GR. For example, grace, greed, grump, grin. So you might click on any of these words, and again, the student will have the job of trying to recognize it and articulate it to you. And when they get most of them right, again, you would click the GR rectangle as a green check mark. Then we move into the second section. Those are the stories. You can see here some stories. We first provide you some thumbnails at the student's reading level, and then you invite the student to choose a story that they have not read before. And so maybe they're going to choose story number 13 here. So you click 13. You as a tutor do. And then it brings up the story, the actual pages of the story. And then your job as a tutor is to advance the screen page by page, as long, when the student finishes reading the content to you. And we color code the words so that you know when to let them struggle a little bit, and maybe when to let them, when to help them out a little bit more readily. And then your job is just to advance through the story page by page. And when you get to the end of the story, you then would ask them some comprehension questions, because we do have quite a few students who are able to read fluently, but they may not really be understanding what they're reading in all cases. So we want to stress, or to have you stress, that comprehension is also important, not just fluency. And so that takes us through the end of the second section, and then finally you move into the third and final section of the tutoring sessions. And the first would be the word sort game. So your job would be to select one of these 9 words one at a time, and invite the student to tell you which of the colored boxes that word should go to based upon its suffix. You know, did the word goat go in the red, the gold, or the blue box? And obviously here we can tell that it goes in the blue box. How about the word spread? Where would that go? So the student should tell you that that would go in the gold box, and so forth. So you go through these one by one, and the kids love this. The next game is called Tic Tac Toe, where you simply invite the student to take turns with you, picking one of the 9 squares. Obviously, we know how to play this game, but you really let the student decode all 9 words. You might take turns with the student choosing the squares, but you let them tell you what the contents are of all 9 words, and hopefully, if they're telling you for your square, then you put an O in, and if they're telling you for their square, you might put an X in. So you do that by clicking. If you click the square once, an X shows up. If you click it again, an O shows up. Then finally, the third game is called Mystery Word, and that's simply where you invite. You might think of a 3 or 4 or 5 letter word from the story, for example, and you invite the student to try to figure out what the word is before the 7 stars are removed. And you remove 1 star if they get a wrong guess, of course. So the kids love this one many times as well. So that's the full session. You've now seen flashcards plus stories plus word games. If you add all that up, it takes about 30 minutes. You take about 10 minutes for each, or maybe a little bit longer on the stories. And then when you're all done, you leave us a feedback form, which you'll see here, and you just let us know whether the session was successful, yes or no. We depend upon this data because we can then determine if that classroom is having a problem, not just for you, but maybe with your fellow tutors who are assigned to that room. So if we have a lot of unsuccessful sessions in a room, then our local program ambassadors will know that that teacher is in need of some support or some coaching. And our ambassadors can go visit the teacher generally early the next week. If you do have a problem, we also ask you to check off what the problem was. Was the student absent? Was the phone not answered? Was it hard to hear the student, for example? So you just click off some of those, and that gives us a little bit more information. If you care to type in some more detail here, that's certainly possible, but not necessary. And then at the end of the year, we invite all of our tutors to meet the students by visiting the school. So most of our tutors are really drawn from the same metro area where the students live as well, where the students are attending school. We do get the question, hey, I'm in Los Angeles, can I tutor a student in Boston? Well, technically, yes, you could, but we don't really encourage too many out-of-towners to do this. Once in a while, we will have some out-of-towners who might be sprinkled into a classroom where the majority of the tutors are really from the metro area. It just isn't something that happens too much. But these are a lot of fun, these meetups at the end of the year. We'll provide you activities to play when you get there. We'll provide you some books to distribute. And increasingly, we're starting to do these meetups in the beginning of the school year as well, maybe sometime in November, for example, because tutoring usually starts in October. So they're great times. It's the icing on the cake. We don't want tutors to miss this, so we'll give you plenty of advance notice. They're usually around lunchtime in late May or early June. So count on this. Here is the overall timeline for the whole program. Registration has been open since July. It's now underway. We're in late August right now, so please consider signing up. The hyperlink to do that is at the top here, tutormate.org/register. And please invite some of your colleagues to do so as well. Then in late September, we begin our online tutor trainings. Those start on the 21st of September. Those are 1-hour trainings for all of our new tutors. If you're a returning tutor, then you don't need to go through the training a second year in a row. We begin to launch our classrooms usually in early October. Some veteran classrooms might launch a little bit sooner, but for the majority of our classrooms, it's early October to mid-October. We might set up what I call a fall visit with your students, where you may drive over to the school once, maybe in November or early December, to meet up with the students. And then Tutoring continues through May, and then in late May or early June we'll have our end-of-year celebration school visits, which I talked about back here on this page here. Okay. So when you do sign up, you're going to see, again, you'll go to this hyperlink, tutormate.org/register. You'll come to this page over here, and you'll fill in your first name, your email, your phone numbers, and your tutor group. So your tutor group is really the name of your company with a dash, and then the name of the metro area or the school district where the student is attending, where you expect to be assigned. So you might see CBRE-Denver, for example. And then when you fill out that form and you click the gold button here, register, it'll take you to the second page, which is where you register for the training sessions, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. So we're getting near the end here. These are some examples of our flyers. Hopefully some of you saw these flyers already. We can provide flyers to help promote the program. There's an FAQ document as well, tiny.cc/IFLFAQs. So check that out if you've got more questions, which I didn't answer today. I will open it up for questions in a moment, but this is a good document to note. Okay, we've had a lot of great press as well. The Detroit Free Press on the front page back in November of 2013. MetLife put us on their internet, on their employee intranet site, so that employees could learn about us that way. And some of our classroom teachers send us wonderful notes about the program, letting us know how meaningful it is to them and how effective it is in terms of moving the needle with many of their students, the students who get tutored. So I'm going to skip the issues around funding, because this is really, that's more of a topic for corporations when they're deciding to participate. But we are nonprofits, so we do ask most of our companies to help underwrite our costs with a support donation each year. And these are some of the key the key hyperlinks from today's presentation that I'm going to leave up on the screen for a minute, and I'm going to just stop and ask if there's any questions. I could unmute all the lines, I think, because we don't have too many people. Let's see. Anybody have any questions at all today for me? Nope. Okay. Then I'm going to put the lines back on mute. And I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attention. I hope that you do decide to register for the program. Once again, I'll put the hyperlink back up on the screen right now so that you know where to go to do that. This right here, tutormate.org/register. Try to do that in the next couple of weeks to 3 weeks so that you can make our very first training session, which is September 21st. Okay? Thank you once again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye now.